You think you know Marilyn Monroe. You know the lips, you know the dress, you know the laugh, you know the moment the white fabric flew up over that subway grate, you know the wiggle of her walk, you know the way she sang "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" like a joke the whole world was in on. But you don't know her, because most people never wanted to. They didn't want a person, they wanted a poster. So let's talk about the woman they flattened into a fantasy. Let's talk about the pieces of her story people skip because they don't fit on a t-shirt. Her name was not Marilyn Monroe. She came into this world as Norma Jeane Mortenson. No movie contract, no diamonds, just a baby born into instability and shadows. Her mother, Gladys, struggled with mental illness. Her father? A question mark she carried like a scar under her skin. As a child, she didn't have a famous last name. She had foster homes, she had abuse, she had doors closing and adults who were supposed to protect her but didn't. The girl you'd later see glowing under studio lights spent her childhood learning one brutal rule. If you want to be safe, you have to become what they want. So she did. When she was still a teenager, she got married, just to avoid going back into the foster system. Not for love, for survival. Think about that. The woman the world called a sex symbol first used marriage not as a fairy tale ending, but as a legal shelter from being thrown away. Then came the cameras. Before the magazines, before the fame, she worked in a munitions factory during World War II. A photographer walked in, saw a pretty girl on the assembly line, and decided her face, that face, was too valuable for grease and gunpowder. Then came the cameras. It sounds like a fairy tale, discovered by chance, becomes a star. But here's the part everyone forgets. She studied. She worked. She wasn't some dizzy blonde who just fell into fame. She took acting classes, she read constantly, she dove into literature and psychoanalysis, she fought with studios over scripts and contracts. The studios wanted a puppet. She wanted to be an artist. They sold her as a joke with curves. She was trying to become a woman with a voice. When you see her on screen, all breath and giggles and that trademark smile, understand something. That was armor. That dumb blonde routine, that was a character she played so well that people forgot she was playing it. She knew exactly how the camera loved her, and she weaponized it. She used Marilyn like a mask to get closer to power, to get closer to roles, to get closer to a seat at a table where nobody wanted to offer her a chair. A woman haunted by miscarriages, by the fear that she'd never have the family she dreamed of, never be more than a man's fantasy and a studio's product. They saw the pills, the insomnia, the late-night calls, the desperate search for comfort in all the wrong places because the right places had never really been there. The world applauded her sex appeal. Almost no one cared about her pain. She was constantly late to set, not because she didn't care, but because anxiety, depression, and addiction kept dragging her back into bed, into therapy, into isolation. The same press that drooled over her body trashed her for being difficult, for being unstable, for not smiling on command. They never stopped to ask, what happens to a person when you turn her into an object and then punish her for being human? Let's talk about her intelligence, because that's the part the myths nearly buried. She once said, "If I am a star, the people made me a star." It sounds simple, but behind it is a clear understanding of power and image. She understood branding before we even had a word for it. She changed her hair, her voice, her name, her walk, every gesture. She built Marilyn Monroe like a character in a play, like a living artwork the world could not look away from. Yet the more perfect that illusion became, the more alone she was inside it. She was constantly reading. She had a personal library with works of philosophy, poetry, literature. She admired serious actors, took method acting classes, worked with acting coaches, not because she had to, but because she genuinely wanted to be better. And when she messed up, when she forgot lines, when anxiety swallowed her whole on set, every mistake was magnified, mocked, turned into proof that she was just a mess. People forget how young she was. 36 when she died. 36. Think about what you were like at 26. At 36. Think of your confusion, your heartbreak, your bad decisions. Now imagine the entire planet watching, judging, criticizing, projecting their fantasies and fears onto your body every single day. The world will tell you that Marilyn Monroe was a cautionary tale about fame, about excess, about sex. But here's the part they don't say out loud. She was also a cautionary tale about how we treat women we desire. We rip them out of their own lives. We edit them into the version we like. And when they struggle, we call them crazy, tragic, too emotional, instead of recognizing that this was the result of what we did to them. In her relationships, she kept looking for safety, for someone who would love Norma Jeane when the lights were off and the makeup was gone. She married famous men, a baseball legend, a celebrated playwright, who, in different ways, wanted her to be something she couldn't sustain. Too glamorous, too serious, too perfect, too controlled. No one ever seemed to say to her, "It's okay just to be broken, to be soft, to not be on all the time." So she turned more and more to doctors, to pills, to that blurry space between waking and sleep where the pain quieted down for just a little while. And then, one night in 1962, the story ends. An overdose. Alone. 36. The headlines got what they wanted. Tragedy, mystery, conspiracy. They froze her in time. Another dead icon to put on a poster. But that's not the real tragedy. The real tragedy is that even in death, people kept treating Marilyn Monroe the way they did in life, as a story to sell, as a body to stare at, as a mystery to gossip about, not as a woman who fought like hell to rewrite her own script, who wanted to be taken seriously, who tried again and again to be something other than.